Story number 1. Shadows in the Dunes. I never thought my job as a night guard would plunge me into the depths of a nightmare. When they offered me the position at the Nevada Desert Research Station, I saw it as a chance to earn some extra cash and escape the hustle of city life for a week. Little did I know, the isolation and silence of the desert would become my worst enemy. Driving down the endless gravel road towards the station, the setting sun cast long, eerie shadows across the vast expanse of sand and rock. The research station Sierra stood solitary against the horizon, a cluster of utilitarian buildings surrounded by high fences topped with barbed wire. No cell service, no nearby towns, just the desolate beauty of the Nevada desert stretching out in every direction. Upon arrival, I was greeted by Dr. Evelyn Shaw, the station's director. She was a stern woman with sharp eyes that seemed to miss nothing. "Welcome, Tom," she said, shaking my hand firmly. "We'll get you settled in. Your duties are simple: monitor the premises, ensure security, and report any anomalies. We have a team here working on some sensitive projects, so discretion is paramount." I was shown to my quarters, a small, Spartan room with a bunk bed, a desk, and a single window overlooking the desert. The silence was almost comforting, broken only by the hum of generators and the distant howling of nocturnal creatures. As night fell, the true isolation set in. The stars above were bright and numerous, unmarred by city lights, creating a mesmerizing yet unsettling canopy. The first few nights passed without incident. I settled into a routine of monitoring the security feeds, reading, and occasionally taking walks around the perimeter. The desert at night was a different world, calm yet ominous, with every rustle of sand and distant cry adding to the sense of being watched. But on the second night, things began to change. After my evening patrol, I noticed fresh footprints encircling the main building. They were large, too large to belong to any animal I knew of, and they appeared out of nowhere. "Probably a stray," I muttered to myself, trying to shake off the unease. However, the footprints continued to appear each night, inching closer to the facility. My attempts to set up motion sensors around the perimeter yielded nothing, no movements detected, no explanations. Determined to get to the bottom of the mystery, I spent hours reviewing the security footage. At first, everything looked normal, but then I saw it, a tall, shadowy figure standing just outside one of the lab windows. It was motionless, staring directly in. My heart raced as I zoomed in, trying to get a better look, but when I checked the actual window, there was no one there. I was alone. Sleep became elusive. Every creak and groan of the building seemed amplified in the oppressive silence of the desert night. I began hearing whispers, faint at first, like the wind rustling through the sand. Gradually, the voices became clearer, though still unintelligible, echoing through the concrete corridors. I tried to rationalize it, stress, exhaustion, isolation playing tricks on my mind, but deep down, I knew something was terribly wrong. Determined to uncover the truth, I decided to inspect the security cameras up close. Armed with a flashlight, I made my way to the control room in the early hours of the morning. The screens flickered as I approached, some displaying static while others showed the same shadowy figures I had seen before. As I examined the camera feeds, I discovered something unsettling. The footage wasn't just capturing anomalies, there were moments when the cameras recorded beyond the desert. It was as if they were tuned into another dimension, showing landscapes and structures that didn't belong to our world. Strange, towering formations and skies that shimmered with unnatural colors flickered across the screens before vanishing into static. The presence of something, or someone, was becoming undeniable. Items in my room would be slightly moved when I wasn't looking. My equipment started malfunctioning for no apparent reason. The whispers grew louder, often turning into screams that rattled the very foundation of the building. One night, unable to sleep, I decided to stay up and confront whatever was tormenting me. Hours passed in tense silence until finally, the temperature in the room plummeted. My breath became visible as a cold, oppressive force settled around me. The whispers turned into a cacophony of voices, all speaking at once, their messages unintelligible but filled with malice. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the room plunged into darkness. I felt a presence behind me, a weight pressing down, making it hard to breathe. I spun around, but there was nothing there, just the suffocating darkness and the relentless voices. Panic set in as I struggled to regain my composure, trying to make sense of the nightmare unfolding around me. Desperation led me to confront Dr. Evelyn Shaw, who was supposed to return after her field research. I found her office empty, papers scattered everywhere. Among the chaos, I discovered a hidden file detailing the true purpose of the research station. It wasn't just about studying the desert's geology or climate, it was about experimenting with interdimensional portals. The project, codenamed ECHO, aimed to tap into alternate realities, seeking new energy sources and technologies from other dimensions. But something had gone horribly wrong. The experiments had torn a rift in the fabric of reality, allowing entities from other dimensions to seep into our world. As I read through the documents, it became clear that I wasn't just guarding the facility, I was part of the experiment. The entire setup, the isolation, the monitoring, was designed to test the limits of human endurance and perception in the presence of these interdimensional beings. Realization hit me like a tidal wave. Every night, every strange occurrence, it was all part of a loop, a continuous cycle meant to observe how long a person could hold out against the psychological and supernatural pressures. The footprints, the shadows, the whispers, they were all elements of the experiment, pushing me to my breaking point. I tried to escape, but every path I took led me back to the starting point. The desert seemed to stretch infinitely, with no way out. Days blended into nights, and the loop continued unabated. Each iteration brought new horrors, more intense and terrifying than the last. Determined to end the cycle, I delved deeper into the station's systems, searching for a way to shut down the experiment. I found the main control hub, a heavily secured room with access to the interdimensional portals. The air was thick with static, and the whispers were louder than ever, almost pleading. As I worked to disable the equipment, the presence around me intensified. The entities began to materialize, their forms shifting and grotesque, their eyes burning with an otherworldly light. They reached out to me, trying to stop me from interfering. With every ounce of strength, I managed to override the systems, initiating a shutdown sequence. The room shook violently as the portals began to collapse. The entities screamed, a sound that echoed through the very core of my being. The whispers turned into a deafening roar, but I pressed on, determined to break free from the nightmare. The final moments felt like an eternity. Just as I was about to lose consciousness, the system powered down, and everything went silent. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and the darkness receded. I found myself back in my bedroom, the first morning sun casting warm light through the window. Had it been real? Or was it just a dream, a hallucination brought on by isolation and stress? I checked the clocks and calendars, only one day had passed. The nightmare seemed over, but a lingering unease remained. As I packed my things to leave, I noticed a small, fresh set of footprints leading away from the building and into the desert. My heart skipped a beat. The loop was broken, but the presence remained, a reminder that some doors, once opened, can never be fully closed. Months have passed since I left Research Station Sierra, but the memories haunt me. My wife says I've changed, more distant and wary. I avoid the desert now, but sometimes, in the dead of night, I still hear the whispers and see the shadows dancing at the edge of my vision. The truth about Echo lingers, a secret too terrifying to share. Some experiments should never be conducted, and some doors should never be opened. But the desert keeps its secrets, and I carry the echoes with me, a constant reminder of the thin veil between our reality and the horrors that lie beyond. I still tell myself it was all a product of my imagination, a horrific tale spun by isolation. But every so often, I catch a glimpse of something moving in the corner of my eye, and I know the desert's echoes are far from forgotten. Story number 2. The Invisible Child. I never believed in ghosts. Growing up in a small town in Massachusetts, stories of haunted houses and restless spirits were the kind of tales you'd hear around a campfire or hear whispered in hushed tones during Halloween. But when my wife, Karen, and our 5-year-old daughter, Lucy, decided to move into the old Whitaker house in suburban Boston, I found myself reluctantly stepping into a story I never wanted to be a part of. The Whitaker house had stood empty for nearly 2 decades, its once vibrant facade now dulled by years of neglect. Tall, dark trees surrounded the property, their branches twisting like skeletal fingers against the gray New England sky. The neighborhood was quiet, the kind of place where everyone knew each other, and secrets were hard to keep. When we first saw the house, it seemed perfect, a fresh start after our hectic lives in the city. Moving day was hectic but uneventful. Boxes were unpacked, furniture arranged, and soon the house felt like ours. Lucy was thrilled with her new room, which had large windows overlooking the backyard. Karen and I were just happy to have found a place we could call home. Little did we know, our new beginning would quickly unravel into something far more sinister. The first few weeks were peaceful. Karen settled into her job at the local library, and I started working from home, enjoying the quiet that the city rarely afforded me. Lucy was a happy child, full of energy and imagination. But it wasn't long before Karen noticed subtle changes in her behavior. Lucy began talking to someone named Eli, a friend no one else could see or hear. At first, I thought it was just the imagination of a child, Karen confided one evening as we sat in the kitchen, sipping our tea. But then she started drawing pictures. Horrible pictures. There's a child in them with a blurred face, no eyes, no nose, no mouth. I took a look at Lucy's drawings. They were unsettling, featuring a dark figure that seemed to watch over her. The more I examined them, the more I felt a chill run down my spine. Maybe she's just processing the move, I suggested, trying to rationalize it. But Karen wasn't so sure. One night, as I was working late, I heard Lucy's soft giggles echoing through the house. Curious, I followed the sound to her room. There she was, sitting cross-legged on her bed, speaking to thin air. Eli, can you show me your new home? She asked, her eyes fixed on nothing. I watched, heart-pounding, as an invisible friend responded with a series of gestures and noises that made no sense to me. Trying to play along, I knelt beside her. Hey, Lucy, who's Eli? Lucy looked up, her eyes wide and filled with a sadness that belied her age. Eli is my best friend. He lives in the house on the other side of the fence. My mind raced. We had noticed an old, abandoned house across the fence, long since considered an eyesore by the neighborhood. But why was Lucy so fixated on it? I decided to investigate, hoping to find a rational explanation. The next day, armed with determination, I walked over to the house across the fence. It was even more dilapidated than the Whitaker house, with broken windows and overgrown weeds reclaiming the yard. As I approached, a sudden wave of unease washed over me. The air felt thick, almost suffocating, and an inexplicable silence hung heavily around. I circled the house, searching for any signs of life, but found nothing. No doors open, no lights on, just the remnants of what once was. Shaking off the feeling, I turned to leave, but something caught my eye, a small, faded photograph partially buried in the dirt. Picking it up, I saw a family of 4, a mother, a father, and 2 children. The youngest child, a girl, looked eerily similar to Lucy. That night, I couldn't shake the image of the photograph. I shared my findings with Karen, who was visibly shaken. I need to look into this, she said, her voice trembling. Together, we began researching the history of the Whitaker house and the abandoned house across the fence. What we uncovered was chilling. The Whitaker family had moved into the old house in the late 1980s, seeking a fresh start. But within a year, the entire family had vanished without a trace. The only member never found was the youngest daughter, Emily Whitaker. Rumors swirled about the house being cursed, but nothing was ever confirmed. The abandoned house across the fence was the home of another family, the Carters, who had also disappeared mysteriously about the same time. As we delved deeper, strange occurrences escalated in our own home. Objects moved on their own, cold spots appeared without warning, and Lucy's drawings became more disturbing. The blurred-faced child now appeared in every sketch, always watching, always waiting. One stormy night, as lightning illuminated the sky, I decided to confront whatever was haunting us. I stood in the living room, determined to protect my family. "Show yourself," I demanded into the darkness. The room grew icy cold, and the whispers began, faint at first, then growing louder, echoing through the halls. A shadowy figure materialized before me, its form wavering like smoke. It was the child from Lucy's drawings, her face still blurred and featureless. "Why are you here?" I shouted, trying to mask the fear in my voice. The figure didn't respond with words, but with a gesture, pointing towards the abandoned house across the fence. My heart raced as I realized the connection. You want me to go there? I asked, taking a cautious step forward. The figure nodded, and suddenly, everything around me shifted. The room twisted, the walls melting away to reveal the desolate landscape of the house across the fence. I found myself standing outside, rain pouring down, the wind howling through the broken windows. Lucy was nowhere to be seen. Panic surged through me as I called her name, but the only response was the echo of my own voice. I stumbled towards the house, the oppressive atmosphere weighing heavily on me. As I approached, the door creaked open, revealing a dark, pitch-black interior where no light could penetrate. Lucy! I shouted again, stepping inside despite the fear gnawing at me. The air was thick with despair, and the silence was deafening. I wandered through the empty rooms, calling her name, until I reached what used to be the children's bedroom. The room was cold, the bed unmade, toys scattered across the floor. In the corner, I saw her, Lucy, standing motionless, staring into the darkness. But something was wrong. Her eyes were hollow, her skin pale, and her smile was twisted into a grotesque mockery of happiness. Lucy, what's wrong? I pleaded, reaching out to her. She didn't respond. Instead, the room began to shift again, the walls closing in, the darkness growing thicker. The blurred-faced child from the Whitaker house appeared beside her, its presence suffocating. You belong here now, the figure whispered, its voice a haunting echo that resonated in my very soul. Desperation took hold, and I grabbed Lucy's hand, pulling her away from the darkness. But as we turned to leave, the house seemed to come alive, the doors slamming shut, the windows sealing tight. The temperature plummeted, and the whispers turned into screams of anguish and despair. I realized then that Eli wasn't just an imaginary friend, he was a conduit, a bridge between our world and the other side. He wanted Lucy to stay, to replace the missing child in that eternal darkness. The realization hit me like a tidal wave, and I knew I had to fight to save my daughter. Let her go! I shouted, confronting the shadowy figures. She's mine. The room trembled, and the figures recoiled, but their hold was strong. I felt a cold hand grip my shoulder, pulling me back towards the darkness. Summoning every ounce of strength, I pushed against the force, focusing on Lucy and our family. The love I felt for her fueled my resistance, creating a beacon of light in the overwhelming darkness. With a final, desperate effort, I broke free from the house's grip, pulling Lucy with me. We ran through the storm, the rain soaking us to the bone, until we reached the safety of our own home. The door slammed shut behind us, sealing away the horrors we had faced. In the aftermath, things seemed to return to normal. The strange occurrences subsided, and Lucy no longer spoke of Eli. However, the unease never fully left us. The photograph of the Whitaker family remained a haunting reminder of the past, and the abandoned house across the fence stood as a silent sentinel, guarding its dark secrets. Months passed, but the memories lingered. Karen and I did our best to move forward, but the fear of what lurked in the shadows never truly faded. One night, as I was putting Lucy to bed, she looked up at me with a sad smile. "Daddy, Eli is still my friend," she whispered. My heart sank. I tried to reassure her, but deep down, I knew the battle wasn't over. The other side was still out there, and Eli's desire to bring Lucy back remained a constant threat. One evening, while researching more about the Whitaker and Carter families, I discovered a chilling connection. Both families had conducted strange experiments in their homes, delving into the supernatural and attempting to communicate with other dimensions. Their disappearance was never solved, but rumors suggested they had opened a gateway that should have remained closed. The realization dawned on me: Eli was a product of those experiments, a spirit trapped between worlds, yearning to escape. He had found a way to reach out through Lucy, using her innocence and imagination as a bridge. If I didn't act quickly, Eli might find another way to bring her into the darkness. Determined to protect my family, I sought out a local historian who specialized in the town's haunted past. Her name was Margaret, an elderly woman with a wealth of knowledge about the supernatural. When I explained our situation, she listened intently, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and understanding. The Whitaker and Carter families were obsessed with contacting the other side, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. They believed they could harness powers beyond our realm. But they were wrong. The entities they contacted were never meant to be summoned. They trapped something dark, something hungry for companionship. She handed me an old journal, its pages yellowed and brittle. This belonged to Emily Whitaker, Margaret explained. It contains rituals and warnings about the dangers of tampering with the unknown. If Eli is trying to bring Lucy over, you need to perform a counter-ritual to seal the gateway for good. With the journal in hand, I returned home, Karen by my side. We spent hours deciphering the archaic texts, preparing ourselves for the task ahead. The ritual required precise timing, specific incantations, and items that were both rare and significant. The night of the ritual arrived, and an oppressive darkness seemed to descend upon our home. Lucy was unusually quiet, her eyes vacant as she stared into the void, communicating with Eli. Karen and I exchanged a worried glance before proceeding. "We have to do this together," Karen said, holding my hand tightly. "For Lucy." We began the ritual, chanting the incantations as instructed. The air grew thick with energy, and the temperature dropped even further. The shadows in the room seemed to writhe and twist, forming into the familiar shapes of the Whitaker and Carter children. Eli's presence was stronger than ever, his intent clear. "Stay with us," he pleaded, his voice echoing through the room. "Don't leave her alone." Ignoring his pleas, we pressed on, focusing our combined strength on the ritual. The shadows resisted, clawing at us with unseen forces, but we held firm. As we reached the final incantation, a blinding light filled the room, pushing back the darkness and silencing the whispers. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and the room felt lighter, freer. Lucy looked up, her eyes clearing as the connection to Eli faded. She hugged us tightly, unaware of the battle we had just endured. In the days that followed, peace returned to our home. The strange occurrences ceased, and Lucy no longer spoke of Eli. We felt a sense of relief, knowing that we had protected her from the darkness that once threatened to consume us. However, the scars remained. The Whitaker house across the fence still stood, a constant reminder of the thin veil between our world and the unknown. Karen and I decided to reach out to the local authorities, ensuring that the abandoned houses would be monitored and that no one else would fall victim to the same fate. Years have passed since that harrowing night, and Lucy has grown into a happy, healthy child, blissfully unaware of the horrors she once faced. The Whitaker house remains untouched, its secrets buried deep within its walls. Occasionally, I catch a glimpse of the old photograph in my study, a silent testament to the battle we fought and the love that saved us. Sometimes, late at night, I still feel a presence watching over us, a reminder that the other side is always there, lurking in the shadows. But as long as Karen and I are together, we know we can face whatever comes our way. The invisible child may have tried to take Lucy, but our bond was stronger, sealing away the darkness and keeping our family safe. In the end, I realized that some stories are more than just tales, they are warnings. And as long as we listen, we can protect ourselves and those we love from the unseen forces that seek to breach our reality. The Whitaker house taught us that the past never truly stays buried, and the echoes of those who came before us can still reach out, hoping for a connection that should never have been made. But we stand firm, our love a beacon against the darkness, ensuring that our story remains one of survival and resilience, not one of loss and despair. And as long as we remember the lessons learned, the invisible child and Eli will remain nothing more than shadows of the past, unable to disrupt the light that now fills our lives. Story number 3. The Last Passenger. I never thought a routine train ride could turn into a descent into madness. But here I am, staring into the abyss of my own memories, trapped on a journey that feels like it's spiraling into eternity. My name is Samantha Collins, and what should have been a simple trip through the cold Alaskan countryside has become the most harrowing experience of my existence. It started like any other night. I boarded the Midnight Express at the small station in Fairbanks, eager to reach Anchorage by dawn. The train was nearly empty, just a handful of passengers scattered across the cars, each lost in their own thoughts. I settled into my window seat, pulling my coat tighter against the biting cold that seeped through the glass. As the train began to move, the rhythmic clatter of the tracks provided a soothing backdrop. I gazed out at the darkness, the snow-covered landscape blurring past in a ghostly procession. There was a sense of solitude here, a peaceful isolation that I cherished. Little did I know, this isolation would soon become my worst nightmare. The first sign something was wrong came when the train made an unexpected stop in the middle of nowhere. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced along the corridors. I glanced around. No one seemed surprised, but an unsettling silence hung in the air. After a few minutes, the train started moving again, resuming its journey through the desolate wilderness. But as the night wore on, the stops became more frequent. Each time the train halted, I noticed that a passenger seemed to vanish. At first, it was just a fellow traveler in a distant car, their face fading into nothingness as the train restarted. Then, one by one, the remaining passengers began to disappear, leaving me alone with only the conductor's indifferent nods. Desperation set in as I realized no one was getting off the train. Panic clawed at my chest when I saw the same few souls remain, their eyes hollow and their movements robotic. They whispered in ancient languages, voices barely audible over the howling wind outside. Their stares fixed on me, accusing and empty, as if they knew something I didn't. Determined to uncover the truth, I ventured through the silent train cars, each step echoing in the oppressive stillness. The dining car was the first to give me chills, tables set for a meal that would never be served, plates covered in a fine layer of frost. In the reflection of the window, I saw shadows moving independently of their owners, shapes that defied logic and reason. In the engine room, the reality of my situation hit me like a freight train. The conductor's office was cluttered with maps and old photographs, each depicting the same barren landscape outside. One photo caught my eye, a picture of the Midnight Express, identical to the one I was on, but dated decades ago. My heart raced as I pieced together the horrifying possibility. This train was a trap, a vessel for lost souls doomed to ride the tracks forever. As I turned to leave, a sudden jolt threw me off balance. The lights went out, plunging me into darkness. The whispers grew louder, swirling around me like a tempest of voices from the past. I could feel their presence pressing against my mind, pulling me deeper into the abyss of forgotten memories. In the pitch-black corridor, I stumbled upon a door marked Memories. With trembling hands, I pushed it open, revealing a room filled with mirrors that reflected not just my image, but fragments of my past. Each mirror showed a different moment, laughter with friends, tender moments with family, the day of the accident that should have ended everything. Tears streamed down my face as I watched myself step onto the platform, unaware of the impending disaster. The train's final departure, the screech of brakes, the blinding light, all the moments leading up to my untimely death. It was then I understood, I wasn't just a passenger on this cursed journey. I was one of them, a lost soul unable to move on, forever searching for the memories that kept me tethered to this spectral train. The realization hit me with crushing weight. The train wasn't just a vehicle through space, it was a conduit through time and existence, feeding on the souls of those who couldn't let go. Each disappearance was another layer of my own unraveling psyche, a loop of despair designed to keep us trapped in an endless cycle. Desperate to break free, I focused on the memories, the love, the loss, the life I once had. I needed to confront the darkness that held me captive. Summoning every ounce of strength, I faced the void, willing myself to let go of the past that kept me chained to this nightmare. The mirrors shattered around me, the fragments swirling into a vortex of light and shadow. The whispers crescendoed into a deafening roar, and I felt myself being pulled towards the center of the storm. Just as I was about to be consumed by the darkness, a blinding flash enveloped me, and I found myself back at the Fairbanks station, the early morning sun warming my face. I stood alone on the platform, the Midnight Express nowhere in sight. Confusion and relief battled within me as I tried to comprehend what had just happened. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a message from Karen, my wife. "Where are you?" "It's past midnight." I rushed home, my heart pounding with the urgency of survival. As I approached our house, a sense of finality settled over me. The lights were on, but the door was ajar. Inside, the scene that greeted me froze me in place. Karen stood in the living room, her face a mask of horror and disbelief. "Samantha," she whispered, reaching out to me, but her hand passed through my chest as if I were made of mist. Panic surged through me as I realized the truth. I wasn't alive. The train, the stops, the disappearances, it had all been my final journey, a liminal space between life and death where I was forced to confront my own end. Tears blurred my vision as I watched Karen fade away, her form dissolving into nothingness. The memories I had fought so hard to reclaim now served as a painful reminder of what I had lost. The darkness beckoned, whispering promises of eternal rest, but I resisted, clinging to the fragments of my former life. In that moment, I understood that the only way to escape was to accept my fate, to let go of the memories that bound me to this eternal voyage. With a heavy heart, I closed my eyes, feeling the darkness wrap around me like a comforting blanket. The whispers softened, becoming a lullaby that guided me towards peace. When I opened my eyes again, I was no longer on the Midnight Express. I stood in a serene meadow, the Alaskan night sky twinkling with stars above. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, and I felt a sense of calm wash over me. Karen was beside me, her presence warm and real. "We're home," she said, her voice filled with love and relief. I smiled, knowing that my journey had finally come to an end. The train, the memories, the darkness, they were all part of the process that led me back to where I belonged. As we walked hand in hand into the light, I felt the weight of my past lift, leaving behind only the love and memories that truly mattered. But every now and then, when the night is especially cold and the wind whispers through the trees, I can still hear the faint echoes of the Midnight Express, a haunting reminder of the journey that brought me back to life. Story number 4. The Door That Led Nowhere. I never believed in ghost stories or urban legends. Growing up in Denver, Colorado, I was more interested in the tangible, the bustling city life, the vibrant community, and the endless opportunities that lay before me. But nothing could have prepared me for the night my friends and I decided to explore the abandoned Blackwood Hotel, a relic of a bygone era rumored to be the site of numerous mysterious disappearances. It was a chilly October evening, the kind where the first hints of winter began to creep into the air. My friends, Jake, Emily, Marcus, and Lily, were always up for an adventure, and the allure of a haunted hotel seemed too irresistible to pass up. Armed with cameras, flashlights, and a healthy dose of skepticism, we set out to uncover the truth behind the Blackwood Hotel. The hotel stood on the outskirts of town, its once grand facade now marred by years of neglect. Vines snaked up the walls, windows were shattered, and the sign above the entrance creaked ominously in the wind. The stories were plentiful, guests vanished without a trace, strange noises echoed through the halls, and shadows moved of their own accord. Naturally, we dismissed these tales as mere folklore, but as we approached the entrance, an unsettling feeling settled over me. "Are we really doing this?" Lily asked, her voice wavering slightly. "Absolutely," Jake replied, trying to mask his own nervousness. "It's just an old building. There's nothing to worry about." We pushed open the heavy wooden doors, which groaned loudly, announcing our presence to the empty halls. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the scent of mold permeated every corner. Our flashlights pierced the darkness, revealing remnants of past grandeur, cracked mirrors, faded wallpaper, and decaying furniture. "Let's split up," Marcus suggested. "We can cover more ground that way." I hesitated, but the thrill of exploration outweighed my apprehension. "Fine. But stay in touch, and meet back here in an hour." We dispersed, each heading in a different direction. I made my way to what appeared to be the main lobby, where a grand chandelier hung precariously from the ceiling. The silence was deafening, broken only by the distant drip of water and the occasional creak of the building settling. As I explored, I stumbled upon a hallway that seemed untouched by time. The doors on either side were intact, their brass handles gleaming despite the grime. It was here that I found it, a door that wasn't on any of the blueprints we had seen. It was slightly ajar, and an inexplicable urge pulled me toward it. "Guys, come check this out," I called, holding up my phone to illuminate the doorway. Jake and Emily hurried over, their expressions shifting from curiosity to unease as they took in the sight. "Where did this come from?" Jake whispered, pushing the door open further. Inside, the room was unlike anything we had seen before. It wasn't part of the hotel at all. Instead, it was a portal to another realm. The air shimmered with an ethereal glow, and the temperature dropped noticeably. Before we could react, a force seemed to pull us inside. The next thing I remember, we were standing in a dense, dark forest. The trees loomed overhead, their branches intertwining to block out any light. The ground was soft beneath our feet, and an eerie silence enveloped us. "Where are we?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. I have no idea, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. We began to walk, hoping to find some clue as to where we were or how to get back. But with every step, the surroundings grew stranger. The trees seemed to move of their own accord, and shadows danced just beyond our line of sight. As we ventured deeper, the forest opened up into a clearing where the air felt thick with anticipation. In the center of the clearing stood a dilapidated cabin, its windows boarded up and door hanging loosely on its hinges. It felt like a beacon, drawing us closer. Maybe there's someone inside, Jake suggested. We approached cautiously, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. As we neared the cabin, the door creaked open, revealing a room filled with broken dolls and tattered toys. The sight sent a chill down my spine. "This place is creepy," Lily muttered, taking a step back. Suddenly, the ground beneath us seemed to shift, and each of us was pulled into a separate, surreal space. I found myself in a room that reflected my deepest fears. The walls were covered in mirrors, each one showing a distorted version of myself, writhing in agony. The whispers began then, voices echoing my insecurities and regrets, growing louder with each passing second. Jake was trapped in a forest of endless darkness, where shadows reached out to grab him, embodying his fear of failure and inadequacy. Emily was in a room filled with endless corridors, each turn leading to another dead end, representing her fear of being lost and alone. Lily faced a vast, empty auditorium, where the spotlight never reached her, symbolizing her fear of being unseen and unheard. I could feel their struggles, their terror, as we each faced our personal hells. The door that had brought us here seemed to watch us, its presence a constant reminder of our entrapment. Desperate to save my friends, I focused on finding a way out, searching for a pattern or a clue that could lead us back. Hours, or what felt like hours, passed as I navigated the maze of mirrors, trying to find the exit. Each reflection showed me a different version of my life, some where I had made different choices, others where I was plagued by doubts and fears. The whispers grew louder, but I forced myself to push forward, refusing to succumb to the darkness. Meanwhile, Jake fought against the shadows, using every ounce of his strength to resist their pull. Emily wandered the corridors, calling out for us, her voice echoing but never reaching us. Lily stood alone in the auditorium, her tears falling silently as she grappled with her fear of invisibility. Finally, I saw a flicker of light at the end of one of the mirror-lined hallways. Summoning all my courage, I ran toward it, the whispers fading as I approached the exit. Bursting through the final door, I found myself back in the abandoned hotel, gasping for breath. My friends were nowhere to be seen, but the door that had brought us here was still open, its ethereal glow fading. People? I called out, but there was no response. Panic set in as I realized I might be alone, or worse, that my friends were still trapped somewhere in those surreal spaces. Determined to find them, I searched every corner of the hotel, but it was as if they had vanished into thin air. Hours turned into days, and my hope dwindled. The whispers began again, this time guiding me to the mysterious door once more. I knew what I had to do. I had to confront my own fears and find a way to free my friends from their torment. Gathering my remaining strength, I stepped back through the door, feeling the familiar pull that had brought us here before. This time, I wasn't alone in my journey. I could sense Jake, Emily, and Lily struggling within their own fears, their voices faint but present. "We can do this," I whispered, holding on to the hope that somehow we could break the cycle. As I navigated the maze of mirrors again, I focused on the love and friendship that bound us together. The reflections began to change, showing moments of laughter and support that we had shared. The whispers transformed from voices of doubt to words of encouragement, pushing me toward the exit. One by one, I found my friends in their respective spaces, each overcoming their fears with my support. Jake pushed back against the shadows, finding strength in our bond. Emily navigated the corridors, her determination fueled by our connection. Lily stood tall in the auditorium, her voice finally rising above the silence as she embraced her worth. Together, we faced our deepest fears, the door that led nowhere becoming a gateway to our collective strength. As we broke free from the final barrier, the abandoned Blackwood Hotel began to crumble around us, the dark energy dissipating into the night. We emerged from the wreckage, the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon. Exhausted but free, we stood together, the horrors of the night etched into our minds, but our friendship stronger than ever. In the aftermath, we vowed never to speak of that night again, the memories too painful to relive. But sometimes, late at night, I catch a glimpse of a shadowy door in the corner of my eye, a reminder of the darkness we faced and the courage that saw us through. The Blackwood Hotel was torn down soon after, the land cleared for new beginnings. Yet, the stories of that haunted place lingered, a cautionary tale of curiosity and the unseen forces that dwell beyond our understanding. As for me, I carry the lessons of that night with me every day, knowing that our deepest fears can be overcome, and that the bonds we shared can light the way through even the darkest of places. But occasionally, when the wind howls through the trees and the night is especially still, I hear the faint whispers of the door that led nowhere, a spectral echo of the journey that forever changed us all. Story number 5. Call from the Deep Sea. I never imagined that my passion for marine biology would lead me to the most harrowing experience of my life. My name is Emily Turner, and what began as a professional curiosity about the mysterious disappearances in the small coastal town of Seacliff, Maine, became a descent into a nightmare that blurred the lines between reality and the supernatural. Seacliff was the epitome of a picturesque New England town, charming cottages lining narrow streets, a lighthouse standing sentinel against the rugged coastline, and the vast Atlantic Ocean stretching endlessly to the west. However, beneath its serene surface lay a history riddled with unexplained vanishments, particularly on nights when the full moon cast an ethereal glow over the waters. I arrived on a crisp October morning, greeted by the salty tang of the sea and the distant cries of seagulls. The town's residents were a tight-knit community, wary of outsiders but welcoming enough to allow me to set up my temporary research station in the old Fisher House, a quaint home overlooking the harbor. From the moment I began my investigation, strange phenomena plagued my every step. Locals spoke in hushed tones about the siren's song, a haunting melody that emanated from the ocean on full moon nights, drawing unsuspecting individuals to the depths, never to return. Skeptical yet intrigued, I delved into the archives, uncovering tales of an ancient civilization that once thrived beneath the waves, now long forgotten, or so I thought. One evening, as the full moon rose high in the sky, casting silvery reflections on the water, I heard it, a melodic tune so enchanting it seemed to seep into my very soul. The song was both beautiful and terrifying, a siren's call that resonated with an inexplicable familiarity. Compelled by an unseen force, I found myself drawn to the shoreline, where the ocean's melody grew louder, more insistent. Determined to uncover the source of the song, I conducted a series of underwater surveys, using my sonar equipment to scan the ocean floor. Days turned into weeks, and while the technology revealed nothing extraordinary, my dreams became increasingly vivid and unsettling. In them, I was submerged in an endless abyss, surrounded by ancient structures and staring into the eyes of a creature that radiated pure malice. One night, as I pored over my findings in the Fisher House library, the door creaked open, and an elderly man stepped inside. He introduced himself as Captain Elias Hart, a retired fisherman who had witnessed the town's darkest secrets firsthand. "You shouldn't be meddling with things you don't understand, Emily," he warned, his voice gravelly from years at sea. "The ocean holds more than just fish and waves. It harbors ancient spirits, remnants of a civilization that wasn't meant to be disturbed." Intrigued and unnerved, I pressed him for more information. Captain Hart recounted the legend of the Aquarians, an advanced underwater race that once coexisted with humans. Their harmonious existence was shattered by a cataclysmic event, forcing them to retreat into the ocean's depths, leaving behind artifacts and a curse that condemned the land above to suffer the consequences of their ancient wrath. Fueled by newfound determination, I continued my research, piecing together fragments of forgotten lore and submerged ruins. It was during one particularly stormy night that I made a breakthrough. Hidden within an old journal belonging to a marine archaeologist who had disappeared years ago, I discovered references to a gateway of tides, a portal that connected our world to the Aquarians' realm. Equipped with this knowledge, I returned to the harbor, setting up my equipment near the location described in the journal. As the full moon reached its zenith, the ocean seemed to respond, waves dancing in unnatural patterns, forming shapes that defied explanation. My heart raced as I activated the portal, a shimmering doorway that rippled with energy, beckoning me to step through. Taking a deep breath, I plunged into the portal, feeling the cold embrace of the deep sea envelop me. The transition was instantaneous, and I found myself in a world that mirrored my dreams, a vast underwater expanse illuminated by bioluminescent flora and towering structures that hinted at an advanced civilization long lost to time. As I navigated this alien landscape, the haunting melody echoed around me, guiding my path. I reached a grand hall adorned with intricate carvings and statues that seemed to watch my every move. In the center stood a colossal figure, an Aquarian, its eyes burning with an intense, otherworldly fury. The creature spoke in a language that resonated within my mind, conveying emotions rather than words. I felt its anger, its longing for revenge against those who had disturbed their sacred realm. The realization hit me hard. I was not just a visitor, I was a key, destined to either free the Aquarians from their eternal prison or bind them forever to the depths of the ocean. As I stood before the ancient being, memories from my past began to surface: childhood trips to the beach, the love I felt for the sea, and the tragic accident that had claimed my parents during a storm. It became clear that my connection to the ocean was more profound than mere scientific curiosity. It was intertwined with my very essence. The Aquarian's gaze pierced through me, and I understood the gravity of my situation. To free them, I would have to unleash their wrath upon the surface, bringing destruction to Seacliff and beyond. To seal them away, I would have to sacrifice my ability to ever return to the world above, forever bound to the ocean's depths. Torn between my duty to protect humanity and my desire to honor the legacy of the Aquarians, I grappled with the decision. The haunting melody intensified, a reminder of the lives lost to the curse and the suffering that continued unabated. In the end, my love for the ocean and the memories of my past outweighed the fear of the unknown. I chose to seal the portal, binding the Aquarians back into their abyssal prison. As I recited the incantations from the ancient journal, the portal began to close, the energy waning as the portal's power faded. The Aquarian's eyes softened, a hint of gratitude amidst the residual anger. "Thank you," it conveyed, before dissipating into the surrounding waters. The portal sealed shut, and I felt the weight of my sacrifice settle upon me. The underwater world around me began to crumble, the once majestic structures collapsing as I was pulled back toward the surface. Emerging from the portal, I found myself back in Seacliff, the storm having passed and the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon. The town seemed untouched, the disappearances halted, and the haunting melody silenced. I stood alone on the shore, the ocean calm and serene, a stark contrast to the turmoil that had consumed me. As I walked back to the Fisher house, I carried the weight of my experience, knowing that the ocean held secrets that should remain undisturbed. The memories of the Aquarians and the choices I had made would forever shape who I was, a constant reminder of the delicate balance between discovery and respect for the unknown. Months have passed since that fateful night, and life in Seacliff has returned to its tranquil state. I continued my work as a marine biologist, but the events of that night never left me. The ocean, once a source of solace and inspiration, now held an air of mystery and caution. Sometimes, during the quiet hours before dawn, I hear faint echoes of the haunting melody, a ghostly reminder of the ancient beings that lie beneath the waves. In those moments, I feel their presence, a silent vigil ensuring that their secrets remain buried and their curse unbroken. I often find myself gazing out at the horizon, contemplating the thin veil that separates our world from the depths below. The ocean's call is no longer a song of beauty but a warning of the darkness that lies beneath, waiting for those who dare to uncover its truths. Years later, Seacliff remains a town shrouded in both beauty and mystery. The Fisher House stands as a beacon of resilience, a testament to the strength required to face the unknown. I became known as the Guardian of the Deep, a title I wear with both pride and sorrow. The Aquarians are still sealed away, their presence a haunting echo of the choices made and the sacrifices endured. I continue to study the ocean, always mindful of the delicate balance between exploration and respect for the ancient forces that dwell beneath. But sometimes, in the stillness of the night, when the moon is full and the ocean calm, I catch a glimpse of something shimmering just below the surface, a reminder that some doors, once opened, can never be fully closed, and some calls from the deep are too powerful to ignore. Story number 6. The No-Exit Forest. I never believed in local legends. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, I was always the skeptical one in my group of friends. But when Jake, Mia, and Ben proposed a camping trip to the infamous Darkwood Forest, I couldn't resist the challenge. They assured me it was just an old myth, a story to scare kids, nothing more. Little did I know, we were about to step into a nightmare from which there was no escape. It was late August when we decided to embark on our adventure. The weather was perfect for camping, clear skies, mild temperatures, and a gentle breeze that promised a pleasant night under the stars. Darkwood Forest, stretching over 50 miles in eastern Oregon, had always been a place of curiosity and caution. Locals whispered about a dark zone, a part of the forest where the sunlight never penetrated, and those who ventured too deep never returned. "Come on, Emily," Jake urged, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "It's just a forest. How bad can it be?" Mia nodded in agreement, packing the last of her gear into the van. Ben, ever the practical one, double-checked our supplies, ensuring we had enough food, water, and equipment for the trip. I hesitated for a moment, contemplating the warnings I'd heard from locals, but the allure of adventure and proving our skepticism outweighed my reservations. We arrived at the edge of Darkwood Forest just as the sun began to set, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink. The towering pines loomed ominously, their silhouettes casting long shadows that seemed to stretch endlessly into the darkness. "This is it," Ben said, unloading the van. "Let's set up camp before it gets too dark." We chose a clearing near a small creek, the sound of flowing water adding a soothing rhythm to the evening. As we pitched our tents and built a fire, the forest seemed to close in around us, the dense canopy above blocking out the remaining light. The first night was uneventful, filled with laughter and stories around the campfire. But as the flames flickered and the shadows danced, an uneasy feeling settled over me. We tried to ignore the growing sense of unease, attributing it to the isolation and our own imaginations. But as midnight approached, strange sounds pierced the silence, rustling leaves, snapping branches, and faint whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. I glanced around, my heart pounding, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. "Probably just wildlife," Jake said, though his voice lacked conviction. I nodded, trying to shake off the feeling of being watched. As the night deepened, the noises grew louder and more distinct. It was then that we saw it, a massive shadow moving just beyond the tree line, its shape humanoid but impossibly large and distorted. "Did you guys see that?" Mia whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Before we could respond, the shadow vanished, swallowed by the darkness. Panic set in as we realized something was terribly wrong. We huddled together, trying to stay calm, but the oppressive silence that followed was more terrifying than any noise. The next morning, we awoke to find our campsite disturbed. Strange footprints surrounded our tents, huge, unlike anything we'd ever seen. They were deep and wide, with an odd, twisting pattern that seemed to defy explanation. "What the hell happened last night?" Ben asked, examining the footprints closely. "I don't know," Jake replied, his voice shaky. "But we need to move. This place is messed up." We packed our gear and began to trek deeper into the forest, hoping to find a way out. But with each step, the forest seemed to grow denser, the trees closer together, blocking out more light. By midday, we realized something horrifying. We were no longer on the path we had taken yesterday. The landscape had shifted, the familiar landmarks replaced by unfamiliar terrain. As we pressed on, the sunlight waned, and an unnatural darkness began to envelop the forest. The air grew thick with humidity, and the sounds of the forest became distorted, echoing unnaturally around us. The oppressive darkness was suffocating, making it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. "Maybe we should head back," Mia suggested, her voice trembling. "We can't," Ben said firmly. "We're lost." Desperation set in as we wandered through the unending maze of trees, each turn leading us deeper into the heart of Darkwood. As night approached once again, the forest seemed to come alive with movement. We could hear footsteps echoing our own, shadows flitting between the trees, and whispers that seemed to speak directly to our souls. On the third night, the true horror of Darkwood revealed itself. As we set up camp, the temperature plummeted, and an icy wind swept through the clearing. The shadows around us grew thicker, almost tangible, and a feeling of dread settled over us. Suddenly, the footsteps stopped, and the whispers turned into guttural growls. A massive figure emerged from the darkness, a grotesque creature with elongated limbs, glowing red eyes, and an aura of pure malevolence. It stood before us, towering and monstrous, its presence exuding an overwhelming sense of fear. "We need to run," Jake said, backing away slowly. But the forest seemed to close in, the trees blocking our escape. The creature let out a blood-curdling roar, and we felt the ground beneath us tremble. Panic turned to sheer terror as we realized the forest itself was alive, responding to our fear and desperation. We tried to flee, but every path led us back to the same clearing, the same campsite, and the same monstrous entity. Each morning, we woke up deeper in the forest, despite having no memory of moving during the night. It was as if Darkwood Forest was toying with us, trapping us in an endless loop with no escape. Our hope dwindled as days turned into weeks, and our mental states began to unravel. The creature's presence was a constant reminder of our entrapment, its red eyes burning into our souls, feeding off our fear and despair. We became shadows of ourselves, our memories fading as the forest eroded our will to survive. On what felt like the 100th day, Mia began to lose her sanity, her mind consumed by the forest's dark influence. She muttered incoherently about a sacrifice, her once vibrant spirit now broken and hollow. It was then that we realized the forest demanded something from us, something beyond our fear and memories. In a desperate attempt to break the cycle, we confronted the creature, hoping to bargain for our freedom. But it wasn't a creature to be reasoned with. It was the forest itself, an ancient entity that thrived on the essence of those who dared to enter its domain. The only way to escape was to offer a sacrifice, to give something precious to appease its insatiable hunger. With heavy hearts, we decided that one of us had to remain behind, a living offering to allow the others to escape. It was a choice no one wanted to make, but it was the only way out. As we gathered around the clearing, the creature watched silently, its red eyes gleaming with anticipation. Jake volunteered first, his sense of responsibility overriding his fear. He stepped forward, his face etched with sorrow, and offered himself to the darkness. The moment he did, the forest seemed to roar with satisfaction, the creature engulfing him in shadows before he vanished without a trace. Relief washed over us as we realized the path was now clear. We ran with everything we had, the forest no longer trying to trap us, its grip loosening as we made our escape. As we burst out of Darkwood, the first rays of sunlight pierced through the canopy, illuminating the forest behind us. We made it back to civilization, but the scars of Darkwood Forest remained. Jake was gone, and the memories of our time in the forest haunted us. We tried to return to our normal lives, but the trauma lingered, our minds forever marked by the horrors we had faced. Years have passed since that fateful trip, and the stories of Darkwood Forest continue to circulate, a cautionary tale for those who dare to venture into the unknown. I often find myself staring into the darkness, the memory of the forest's red eyes burning into my mind, a reminder of the thin veil between our world and the malevolent forces that dwell beyond. Sometimes, late at night, I hear the faint echoes of footsteps and whispers, a haunting reminder that Darkwood Forest is still out there, waiting for its next victims. And I know, deep down, that some places are best left unexplored, their secrets buried beneath layers of darkness and fear.